Welcome back to another Tech Tuesday. Today we'll be talking about how to build a CMA using KvCore, which is an awesome feature, free of charge, and I'll be walking you guys through that today. So now to access that feature, what you want to do is once you log into KvCore, we're going to scroll down to the marketing section. Okay, once you go ahead and click on that, this is the feature we'll be using, Core Present. And it says create and deliver key data pricing points in a compelling conversational presentation in just minutes. And they're not kidding. Just with a few clicks, you can craft up this beautiful looking presentation that also includes a CMA for a client of yours. Okay, so to access the Core Present feature, you can click on Marketing and then click Core Present. Or once you hover over the marketing section, it should be right there in the drop down. Okay, and if you guys don't see this drop down right here, just go ahead and click the menu icon at the top right there. Okay, that'll populate that, and then you can see marketing. So now we're gonna go ahead and get started. So let me click on here. Awesome. All right, so once you go ahead and click on Core Present, you'll be greeted with this screen right here. So you have multiple options. You can choose the win the listing, win the offer, present info, and buyer tour. Today we'll be focusing on win the listing. Okay, this is more geared towards sellers, but you do have the option to create other types of presentations. So let's go ahead and click on win the listing, and we will create this for a seller. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that, and then you'll see this screen. Okay, so on this screen right here, obviously you're building this for a client who might be selling his property. So KvCore is gonna ask you to put in the address of the subject property in question. So just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to use 123 Main Street. It's super easy, and it's located in Santa Maria. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and choose that, and KvCore will auto-populate some of the details for you. Obviously, I don't know the person who owns this address. This is just for educational purposes only, so I don't know all of these details, whether they're accurate or not. But let's say that this was a single family type of property. It had 3 bedrooms and about this size in terms of living area, and it was built in 1920. Okay, for your property, go ahead and make sure all of these details are accurate. Okay, so that KvCore can generate the proper comparable properties for that subject property in question. So once you have filled all of this in, make sure all of it is accurate. You want to proceed to click on comparable details. You want to click on this button right here. Now you don't have to build a CMA, but you have the option to add that into the presentation you are building. So if you don't want a CMA, you could go ahead and just click skip to presentation. But if you want to add a CMA, you want to click the darker button right here that says comparable details. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it'll bring up this screen right here. At first glance, it might look like a lot of information, and it might look a little bit too techy, too much things to do, and a little bit scary. But trust me, you just got to get used to where everything is and know what section is what, if that makes sense. We're gonna go through every single thing you see here in detail, step by step. Okay, so once you go ahead and submit your property details and you click on CMA details, we're gonna get greeted with this screen, and on the left hand side here you have a section where you can actually give KvCore the criterias you want it to the criterias of the comparable properties you want it to implement in order to find you the correct comparables. So you have the option to set this on auto, or you can do this manually as well. On auto, KvCore will automatically set it to properties that were sold in the last 6 months. It does not matter what year they were built. and it'll have plus or minus, I believe, 15 or 20% of the amount of living area square footage. So you can tweak all of these, but you can see what criterias KvCore automatically implements on there, which is pretty cool. But if you want to go ahead and tweak all of those criterias, you can use this section for that. So let's say we wanted to compare to not only single family homes but also condos. I could click the little plus right here to open up that drop down, and I can check all the different kinds of property types right here. Because I'm assuming the property address I put in is a single family home, I'm just gonna leave that one checked. I don't want to compare single family homes to condos or multi-units, because that's not a fair comparison. So I'm gonna leave this checked, and then we're gonna collapse this. We're gonna go to the next section, which is year built. Okay, here you have the option to only look for properties that were built in a certain year that you will then add to your comparable list. Typically, when you build a CMA, the more detailed you are, the more listings and properties you exclude. So it might be a good idea to be as broad as possible, only have key criterias that you look for. So maybe a property was built in 1921, and that one may not show on my list of comparables. So you might want to actually remove this altogether, or maybe change it to a date range. Okay, so if I click change year range, that will bring up a section where I can say, hey, I want to include every property built from 1920 to 2022, or perhaps just change this from 1920 to 1999. Okay, you have the option to do so. But by default, KvCore will have the year your subject property was built in. So let's change that to from 1920 to 1999. And once I have those changes written up, I'm going to click the check mark right here, and that will refresh on the right hand side right here where the map is. Pretty cool stuff. Okay, so now as you notice, it says pool comps that match year built is from 1920 to 1999. And then I'm going to collapse this section, and we're going to move on to closed date. If I open this section up, this section basically says how far back do you want KvCore to look for comparable properties. Typically, it's going to be 180 days from the current date. If there's not many comps, you might be compelled to go even further back to maybe a year, and KvCore will let you do this all the way to up to 2 years from the current date. So I'm gonna leave this to 6 months because there seems to be a lot of properties to choose from already, which is pretty cool. So yeah, you have that option on this section. I'm gonna collapse this. We're gonna move on to the next section, which is bed count. Okay, bed count is very important in CMAs, because you probably don't want to compare a 2-bed to a 3-bed, but if you have no other option, you can work around with the numbers and determine the value of your comp of your subject property, I mean. So I'm gonna leave this as 3 beds and only compare my property to 3-bed properties. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that as is, but you do have the option to change this range, maybe from 1 to 3, by dragging the little points right here. So I could do 2 to 3, 3 to 4, or if I only want 4, I could just stack the little dots on top of each other. So we're gonna stay at 3, so I'm gonna leave it just like that. Then I'll press the little minus to collapse this section, and next up is square footage. Okay, and by the way, you can always hover over the little question marks to see what these sections do, but I'm taking you through every single one so we can see them in action together. So next up is square footage. I'm gonna press a little plus. So let me make sure I'm not disturbed. So let's go on do not disturb mode right here. There we go. That way no one's gonna interrupt me. So yeah, on this section, square footage, you have the option to look for properties that are maybe 20, maybe that have 20% less square footage, or maybe more than 20% square footage. So you can tweak this to your liking to find as many comps as possible. I think 20% is very substantial, so let's maybe drag it down to, if it will let me, 10%. Okay, so 10% on the lower end and 10% on the higher end. So since my property is almost 1600 square feet, I only want to see comps that are, you know, have 10% more or 10% less. Okay, so that is what this section is referring to. And if you see at the bottom right here, you have an option to check that says include listings that don't list square footage but align with all other criteria. So let's say there's a property that closely matches yours, but they just happen to have not added the square footage to it. So you don't want to miss on those. If you don't want to miss out on those, you can go ahead and check this, and then KvCore will look for comparable properties that match all the other criterias but don't list the square footage. So that'll include those. If you don't want to include properties that don't have that listed, you can uncheck this. Okay, so now that's the square footage section. We're going to press the minus to collapse that, and then we're going to open up total lot size. So obviously this is the total lot size. You don't have to include this, but if you want, you can create a spectrum for KvCore to look comps under. You know, it could be from 0 to whatever you want. You could do it in square feet or acres. You could put a nice range in here, whatever works for you. Once you're done, don't forget to click on the blue check, and that will apply that change. I will leave mine as is because I want to see everything, so I'm not going to put anything under there. So once you're done, press the little minus to collapse that. So this is the automatic section. It'll let you tweak every single thing. Now you also have the manual section. So if I go ahead and click on manual, as you see right here, all of the little options are gone. So manual will let you add your own MLS IDs for the properties you want to add to your CMA. So say you don't want KvCore to look for anything, you want to manually add everything, maybe from your MLS. You can just type in the MLS IDs for the comps and have KvCore pull in all of that information from those listings. Okay, pretty cool stuff. KvCore is already connected to your, or actually should already be connected to your MLS account. And that's how it's able to pull, you know, all the comps it does automatically in the first place. But if you do not want to be encumbered with all that information and want to be more hands-on, the manual section is going to be for you, where you can input each individual property you want the CMA to be comprised of. Okay, so all you would have to do is just paste that in here or type it up, click the blue button, and then it will populate right here on the map with all of its details. I don't have any MLS IDs right now at the top of my head, so you're gonna have to trust me on that. So once you put that in here, you press the blue button, it will reflect right here on the map. So we're gonna stay on auto right here and let KvCore do the work for us. And yeah, that's all. That's the auto section and the manual section. As you notice, under the auto section, you can still input MLS IDs, and this is if you want to add something that you might not be seeing on here that you see elsewhere. So with that MLS ID, you'll be able to add to the ones KvCore was also able to pull on its own. Okay, so this is the criteria section, if you will. Now, if we look on the right hand side of this window, you'll see the property, the subject properties address in question. It'll have the details of the subject property. As you can see, this is a single family residence with 3 beds and about almost 1600 square feet, built in 1920. Comparable criteria, this section right here is where you can see all of the criteria you have set right here on the left hand side. So again, single family, 3 beds, we only want to see 1400 to 1700 square feet. We only want to see properties that were built from 1920 to 1999, and we only want to see properties that were sold within the last 6 months. Okay, so that's that top right section. And if we look below On here you have a map. Okay, and on this map it will jot down all of the findings from, you know, your criteria. So whatever you do on here, it will dynamically and you know, actively refresh and show you that updated information. So on the map, you can switch to the satellite view so that you can see a bunch of, you know, different colors and not be monotone. Or if you prefer the black and white, you can go ahead and just click on map. If you check the terrain option, it will make sure the terrain is well animated, if you will, or well drawn, so you can see that. If you don't want to see all that, you can uncheck terrain and it'll just be flat and gray. If we go to the satellite section, you can choose to have all the labels for all the roads and cities and whatnot. If you uncheck this, you will not see any labels. Okay, so I like the map view. I'm gonna keep it on that, and maybe let's add a terrain because it looks nice. So if we look right here, this reset button will actually remove this radius that KvCore is looking through. Okay, if I click reset, it will remove everything. It will just change, how do you say? KvCore will reset everything you see on here. If you want to change it to your liking, what you could do is click on the this drop down to the right, and you can choose how far away you want KvCore to look. And as you see, if I do that, it will repopulate everything that we had before. So I think by default it's set to 1 mile from the subject properties location. So reset will remove everything you have so that you can rebuild your, you know, area that you want to search within. Let's say you don't want to circle radius and the place you're trying to comp your properties with is a really tricky area that you want to just select yourself. What you could do is click on the draw a shape button right here. It's really small, but it's the third one out of all these three. If I click on this, KvCore will remove my selector and I can go ahead and draw a polygon. So I just do that by clicking, which will create a point every time I do so. So yep, now that I've built this shape, KvCore will only look for comparable properties within this polygon I just drew. Okay, if I go ahead and zoom in, which you can do on the right side or the left side by clicking the plus or the minus icons, it will zoom in so that you can see more details. Okay, now this button right here in the middle allows you to create a marker. Okay, so which is pretty cool. You can do so wherever you want if need be. And then this button right here allows you to stop a drawing. Okay, so if you were doing a drawing and you want to stop, you know, clicking, you can just press here and it will reset that for you. So this marker, let's see, let me go ahead and draw another shape here. Boom. Awesome. So actually this marker will set it back to a circle. It's supposed to mark a spot on there. Maybe I was dreaming, but yeah. The polygon tool will let you draw, you know, an area. The hand tool will reset your drawing so that you could do it again. And apparently the marker tool will set it back to a circle. So I'm just gonna keep it at a circle. Let's leave it at that. That's weird. Yeah, I also want to show that you can make this map full screen, so you can actually see, you know, the whole thing, browse around the whole neighborhood. You can still draw a polygon from this full screen view, and you can zoom in. And if you click on the little buddy right here and you press and hold and drag him onto any street, KvCore will actually drop you there. So this is our subject property in orange right there with the house looking icon, and it looks like there is a property right next to it that I'm gonna drop in to. So if I release this button, it will drop me into that cross street. And if you see this marker right here, this marker is actually the one that we were seeing on the map. So if I go ahead and exit this view by clicking at the top left right there, it will show us more information about that location. Pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to exit the full screen view by clicking at the top right. And there are, so I want to show you guys these at the bottom right here. So these markers have, different colors. You have the blue, green, yellow or orange, and then you have red. So the blue ones, obviously it says it down there, coming soon, comps that match, active comps that match, pending comps that match, and sold comps that match your criteria to a certain degree. So if you look on the map here, you can also notice that certain markers look different than the ones listed up here, because the darker markers are the ones KvCore has not chosen to be in your CMA. So if you click on those darker markers, you have the option to add those to your comp, and once you add them to your comp, the color will change to the brighter versions of them. If you want to remove a comp from your CMA, you can click on that icon, press remove, and it will take it off. And as you can see, the marker changed back to a darker icon. So that's what the difference in colors mean. So as you can see, darker green means it's not being considered as a comp, but the lighter green is considered as a comp within my CMA. Okay, so you can play around with that, add comps, remove them, and if you go ahead and click on any of the markers, you can actually see more information about those properties in question. So if I go ahead and click on more info, it'll open this nice menu right here with the map on top, so you can see its location in reference to the subject property. You can flip through the photos. Yeah, this guy took some nice photos of this property. You can see all the details, the address, all of this stuff. And mind you, this information is pulled from the MLS, so it's as accurate as it can be. So I'm gonna X out of this, and yeah, that's all of the features you have available to you when you use the map section right here. All right. So now, once you've added all of the comps you want, and set all of your criterias, and everything is looking as good as you want it, next up you want to build your CMA. So if we click on that button right here, that will bring us to this screen that includes a lot of information. And mind you, this screen is part of what the client will see, or the seller, because we're building this for a seller in mind. So it'll have a lot of different boxes. Again, this might look like a lot of information, but we'll go through each of these one by one. So if we look at the top left right here, you have again the address of the property in question and when this report is valid for, that's the day. Reason it puts this date here is because tomorrow one of these properties might sell, or something might change, prices might drop. So it's good that KvCore puts this date right here, so you know when you built this CMA. And then on this box right here, because this is something the seller will see or the client will see, they might not know what a CMA is, and it has this nice section right here for them to see and see the definition of what a CMA is. And it says CMA is something that helps identify and analyze a property's value based on sales of comparable homes and market trends. And at the bottom here, they'll be able to see how many properties are included within this CMA. So as you can see, there's 0 coming soon, 1 active, 1 pending, and 3 closed properties that this CMA is comprised of. And if we look at this box right here, this just shows the criteria you have set in order to find the comparables that you did right here. So it says that we were looking for things that only had 3 bedroom and have a living area size of this amount of square foot and this amount of square foot. Okay, and if you want, you can click the edit search criteria. That'll actually take you back and you can tweak that. If we scroll down right here, you will see this really cool infographic that the client or the person who sees this in question will be able to interact with. Okay, this has a price spectrum, and mind you, this is all generated based on the comps you have chosen. So It's gonna have this price spectrum. It looks like it's from $4.99 all the way to $6.39, 900, and it will jot down cool information about, you know, all of the comps you have. So it'll say, hey, at $4.99 right here, you know, the most recent active comp was listed at that. It's a 3-bed and 0.8 miles away from the subject property. And, you know, average of active comps looks like is also that number, $4.99. They can see the average of all pending comps that you have chosen, which ends up right here on this price spectrum, and etc., etc. You can jot down, you know, all the information that you think the buyer will need right here. Okay, before I show you how to add or remove certain information, let's go ahead and click on this button right here. We're gonna go through each of these 5 sections in detail, that way you know exactly what they are. If I click on review results, that will bring this page, and this just takes you through all of the comps that you have chosen. As you remember, there was 1 active home, 1 pending, and 3 closed. So on this screen, the buyer or the seller, whoever ends up seeing the CMA, will be able to see and click through each of these and maybe grab more details, see photos, to get a better understanding of why you chose it as a comp and how it will determine or should determine the value of the subject property. Something that's really cool is on this screen right here, you can actually add a note for the person to see once they, you know, get this presentation. Let's say this property had a pool and you wanted to stress that to the client in question. I could just click add a note right here. It will open up this text box for me to write in, and you can actually make it bigger or smaller. I could put this property has a pool, exclamation mark, and then I could save that. Now, when I send this presentation to anyone and they click on this property, they will be able to see this notes section, which is very powerful. Yeah, and you can they can click like on this property, or you can remove this from the graph you have here by clicking delete. Okay, and it will also remove them from the calculations and the scale. They'll see all the details for, you know, this property in question, and again they can click through all of these guys right here and do the same. Okay, awesome stuff. So I'm going to close out of this, and if we go to the next section, the trend section, and I click on that, so this is actually where you are able to add or remove the information displayed on the price spectrum. So as you can see right here, let's see, average of active comps. Under the active property section, you see this is checked. That's what it's reflecting right here. If I was to uncheck this, it'll disappear or get removed from my price spectrum. So maybe this is information I need to present to the buyer or seller, whoever it is, or maybe it's not. So you have the option to choose what gets displayed here so that the client in question can get a, you know, better understanding of the homes around the area and the CMA overall. You could just choose to include everything if you want, just check all the boxes. Sky's the limit, it's up to you. You have an active section, pending section, closed section, and whatever you check will pop up on the price spectrum. Okay, so I'm going to close this, and that was the trend section. Okay, you also have a features section. If I go ahead and click on that, you can choose to display certain things on the graph, such as properties that were within the comps, within the CMA, the comps that you chose. You can choose to feature on this price spectrum properties that had 2 garages. Looks like there's one that has 2 garage. Looks like there's one that has 1 garage. And as you see, when I check these, it will appear right here. On market comps with 1 garage. If I uncheck this, it'll go away. If this is relevant information, you can add it or not add it right here. So I'm going to take these off, and if you flip this, you can also do so for closed properties. So maybe you want to feature closed properties that had a property view. If I check this, that will appear on my price spectrum. If I uncheck, it will not show. If you want to show all the features, you can go ahead and click this, and that will give you a more extensive catalog of options you can choose to display on the price spectrum. But those features might not be, you know, on your comparable also, so on your subject property, I'm sorry. So play with this and show the information that you would like to show. I'm going to close this. Next step is the estimate. Okay, this section has a description of what it is right here, but you can add estimates from different sources of what the subject property might be valued at or might be sold at, and the name of the source you could put on here. So you could just put something like Tommy, and maybe Tommy says this property is worth $500,000. So you could fill that in, press add, and that will be on there. Okay, and as you see right here on the graph, it'll say Tommy $500. So that's an estimate of value that Tommy told me. So you could put that on there for any reason if you need. But I don't know Tommy, I don't trust Tommy's analysis, so I'm going to click the X and remove that and get out of here. Last section is the outliers. So these are properties that were maybe way too big or had one too many bedrooms. Outliers. So if you want to include those in your pricing spectrum, you could go ahead and check that, and it will add those also. And you have plenty of options to choose from there. So I'm going to close out of this, and that is these 5 sections and what they mean. Now, this section right here, you can just choose to display properties by the total price, or you can choose to display properties by price divided by square foot. Okay, I choose total price. It's much easier to understand, so I'm going to leave it as that, so everything is displayed with a full price. On here, you are able to add your suggested listing price that you would want the client to see upon looking at this presentation. Let's say I think that this property should be priced at $550, so I could put $550,000 right here, and then go ahead and press the add button. That will add another entry on this pricing spectrum where my seller would be able to see that I am thinking of listing the property for that price based on all this extra information. If you don't want to put a set price there, you can click the remove, that will take that off, and you can also put a range. So maybe I think it's worth between $525 all the way to maybe $575. Okay, and I can write that in there, press the add button, and it will pop up on the graph. I think it's worth $525 to maybe $575. And yeah, if you go ahead and press remove/change, that will take that off. So I'm gonna keep it just like this with nothing. If you scroll down here, KvCore will have a bunch of information for you and the viewer of this presentation to look at. They can click on each of these 6 sections. We'll go through these really quickly. They're self-explanatory. It'll have an average monthly list/sell price, and it looks like the average list price of all monthly active and pending comparables were this amount. If they click on that, they get this nice infographic that will break all of that down to them. Okay, on this side you can see how fresh or stale a comparable is. So this would apply to active comparables, obviously, because closed ones are closed. If we click on it, it will break it down in terms of weeks. The darker, the more purple it is, the older it is or more stale, and the greener it is, the more fresh a listing is. So it looks like the listing we see right here is somewhat fresh. I think that one's 6 to 8 weeks. These colors match. So they're able to see that, and they can click on them, click more info, and that will pop up for them. Okay, looks like it's a property where we put a note and that will stay. So I'm gonna close out of this, and then you also have a selling pace section. If I click on that, this will have a nice graph with days on market versus sold price, and they can hover over all the data points and see more information. I'm gonna close this, and then down here, let me move my face this way. If I click on price per square feet, self-explanatory, square feet price, a nice infographic with all of that information, and they can hover over the data points to see extra info. And then next we have pricing, rate of change. Looks like average rate of change between listed and recorded price of sold comps was 0%. If I click on it, it'll break down that information. So you can see the difference between how much people are listing certain properties and how much they're actually selling for. Okay, so it looks like this one sold listed for 634,900 and actually sold above that, and that's a 0.79 difference. And right here it looks like this one sold for exactly what it was listed for, and this one as well. So it'll give you a nice percentage of the everything within your comps. Last one here is current active shelf life. Let's move the face back here. Right here, this will tell you the average days comps are sitting on the market, and it looks like on average it's taking 51 days for all the comparables to sell. If they click on it, it'll have a nice infographic with data points you can hover over with days on market versus list price. Okay, great information. So that's what all of this is right here. Okay, it looks scary, it looks like a bunch of stuff at first, but it's pretty simple. You don't need to input any of this information. All you need to do is feed KvCore with all of the comps you want it to work with, and it will pull all this information, write all this stuff for you, and make it look very nice and very professional. So once you're done and everything looks as good as you want it to look, you can go ahead and just save the CMA portion and have that emailed or attributed to a client, or you can create a presentation that includes the CMA. So we're gonna do both just so we know what it looks like. If I go ahead and press save CMA only, it will open up a pop-up very shortly after it saves. And here you are able to type in a client's name on your that's in your contacts list. Okay, so I'm gonna look for John Doe, not Joe Doe, John Doe. Okay, we're gonna scroll and find him right here. So now this CMA will be added to John Doe's contact card, if you will, for me to check at any time because I put his name on here. So this CMA is built for John Doe. And if you don't have a KvCore client, you can just click this button right here and you can just make that contact from here. Okay, but I'm just gonna keep it at John Doe. Let's find him again. Where are you, John Doe? There you are. So once you have a client, you could press add, and then now this CMA will be saved to his CMA reports. I'm gonna press OK. And that's that. You can just do that and just be done. But if you want to have a presentation made and include this CMA, we can just move on to press this button right here and create presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. It's gonna take a quick second. It's gonna load up. And then here we are. So this is the final screen where you get to customize how this looks and rearrange it to make sure it's in the right order. So first things first, we're gonna start with the top left. You have presentation settings you're able to tweak right here. If we click on the emphasis section right here, it will populate a drop down that has different sections for you to choose from. There's a default order, which is what it's in right now. And you have contingent, I'm shopping you, make me list. So I'm not gonna read through all of these. I already know what they are. The default order is just what KvCore has them ordered as by default. But if I was to choose contingent, we're just gonna read this one. So this is a, it's gonna rearrange the slides and maybe add some or remove some because it thinks that you're building this for a contingency seller. And what KvCore deems a contingency seller is someone whose main hurdle is feeling comfortable that the home is priced right and your marketing plan will get the job done. So based on KvCore knowing this, it will rearrange or maybe add certain slides or remove certain slides. The I'm shopping you is the one who knows they want to sell, but they're just shopping for the right agent. So KvCore will just swap around the slides or maybe add more slides to sell you more effectively. so that you send out as an agent and you're more likely to be the one they move forward with. Make me list is the person who might be probably unsure that they want to sell the property immediately, or maybe don't want to sell it immediately. So this will kind of show them why now is the best time to list, and KvCore will emphasize that within the slides, if that makes sense. So we're going to keep it at the default order. I'm going to close this. The next button right here is the theme. This is pretty fun. You get to choose what your slides look like. You could go traditional, change between these looks. You could go modern, and change between those looks, and you could go luxury, and also you have more option there. So you could just click on whatever you like and have your presentation looking as good as you want. So I'm gonna click the X right here, and then the last button right here is the mode. So you can have this set as a presentation. You can have it set as just a CMA, so that way they only see the CMA information, or you can just do a single page review. This will have a quick page with just all the core information from your CMA and that little nice pricing spectrum we were working on earlier. So I'm gonna go back to presentation, and I'm gonna close this. As you see on the left hand side, I'm gonna move this over here. You have the option to look at all the different sections, what they're comprised of, and you can also click the add slide button to add more slides. So if we click on the next button here, this will actually flip through the slides in order, and it will show you exactly what the buyer sees. So this is all the stuff we worked on, and KvCore auto-populates all the information they need to know. It has my picture and contact information up there. Yeah, has this that we worked on. It also has this nice section that we got to see earlier. So KvCore will compile all of this for you. You don't need to rearrange all these slides. You can if you want to, by clicking and dragging, or just removing and maybe adding other slides. If you want to add another slide, obviously press the add slide button. And if you want, you can divide the types of slides based on the category you want, or you could just go to all slides, and it will show you all of the different slides KvCore has for you to add. The grayed out ones are the ones that are already included in your presentation. If I was to scroll all the way down, the non-grayed out ones will say not included at the bottom. So say we want to put a home selling process slide into our presentation, I could just click on this. It will say included now. And maybe we want to add home buying process. We could click on that, and that will add that slide to the presentation. Let me click it again. My computer is a little slow right now. Maybe included, or maybe not. Okay. Well, maybe I have too many slides. So yeah, some of these are not working for me right now, but it's probably my computer bugging. But when I click, you see it says included, and when I click again, it says not included. So you can include slides, and then you can press add selected slides at the bottom right here, and KvCore will add that slide to your presentation. So it went from 11 slides to now 12 slides, which is pretty cool. Okay. And again, you can flip through all of the sections right here by pressing the previous or next button. And if we look at the top right here, you have two options. You can create this presentation as through you can make this presentation a web-based one, or you can make it a PDF file. So if I click on PDF, it'll make things look a little bit different because it's not a web version. It's not going to be as interactive. Everything is just going to be on there for you just to read over. So let's go to the first slide so we can go back to the beginning. So it'll look like this. You can flip through the slides. You see it looks a little bit different because nothing is clickable. Okay. It'll go through all of the slides for you. You could press next. This is the slide we just added, the home selling process. If I flip back to the web-based version, that will allow the viewer to actually interact with these slides. So such as, this map, for example, I can move around, I can click on, the markers, see more information. Pretty cool stuff. So you have the option of having a PDF format or a web-based format. So once it's looking pretty good and you have all your information on there, what you now need to do is press present and share. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to think for a little bit and then bring us to the screen right here. So now you have officially created your presentation, done your CMA just with a click of a few buttons. Okay. On this page right here, you can see the client that I've added this presentation to, which was John Doe. It'll have that here. So what you can do now from the screen is, if you want, you can add a listing agreement link. So when I click on that, it'll open up this pop-up where you can link them to the listing agreement, or you can upload that document right here for them. So all they have to do is just sign or just fill in a few details. If I X this out, you can also add a net sheet, which I'm sure most of you guys know what that is, but if not, it's just a sheet of paper that breaks down all the fees associated with selling your home, so that way they can see what they're netting at the end of the day. Okay, and you can do this for 3 different price options, whatever they decide to list their property at, just so they have an idea. If I close this, we can also add a video link. So if you have a YouTube video or a Loom video, I've never used that, you could just post the link to that and they can also view that at the end of the presentation. Down here, if you click open presentation, that's exactly what it's going to do. It'll open a new tab and open up that presentation for you. So this is actually what the viewer will see. They can skip through all the slides, play around with everything, see all the information, click on all this stuff. They'll be able to do all this. Let's see if I can find that property with the notes. Yep, right here, this property has a pool, so they'll be able to see that too. Yeah, they can flip through all these, which is pretty cool. And at the end of the presentation, they'll have the option to click the get started button, or I need more time information. I need more time or information. If they click on get started, KvCore will record that information and it'll tell them you will be in touch. We're gonna press OK, and if they need more time or something else is going on, making them not wanting to move forward just yet, they'll most likely click there, and they'll have an option to choose, what the reasoning behind that is. Or if they click other, they can actually type that reason for you right there. Okay, and KvCore records all this info for you to check out. That way you have feedback that you can implement on your future presentations. And on here, they can also download the presentation just so they have it on their device. Okay, and you have all your contact info right here on the left-hand side. So let's go back to the screen. On here, you can email the presentation to your client. You can download it by clicking right here. Or you could just share a link to this by clicking the copy button and pasting it wherever you would like, or just sending the link via text to your client. Just so you see, if I open up a new tab and go to that link, it brings us back to this presentation, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so that's how you build a CMA and a listing presentation for a seller. So now that we have completed this, I want to show you one last thing. So we're going to go back to Core Present Home by clicking right here. This will take you back to the page where we started. If we scroll down right here, these are all the presentations I have built. And if we go through this graph right here, it'll show you how many presentations you have, the average time spent on your presentations by the people who have viewed it, the average open rate, seller response, average buyer response. You have all that cool stuff there. If we scroll to this table, it'll break it down in terms of the address, the client it's been assigned to, how many versions of it do you have, the last time you've updated it, the feedback that the viewer has given, You can see the web-based version or the PDF-based version right here. If you click on the little mail icon, obviously you can mail it out, and if you click the X, that will delete the presentation. So if for some reason you need to go back to your CMA and edit stuff, you could click the update button. That will reopen the presentation, and you can play around with the criterias or maybe the comps you used within it. If we click on the analytics section right here, so it looks like this address, the presentation I've built for this address has some data that I can check out. So if I click on this, it will tell me the duration, the average time spent on that presentation, how many slides have been viewed. Looks like 100% of this presentation was viewed, and when's the last time it was opened. Okay, so it looks like it'll also break every single slide down in terms of how long the person spent on each slide, and based on that you can kind of conclude, hey, maybe pricing is very important to this client, so it makes sense that they spent all this time on that slide of the presentation. So you have all this cool data that you can check out, and if you click on page views, you can see how many times a specific page has been viewed. Okay, so I'm going to close out of this, and yeah, we have learned how to create a beautiful presentation just with the click of a few buttons. It was super simple. It might look tricky or it might look scary at first, but play around with it. If you have any questions, make sure to comment down below or give me a call, and I'll make sure to put you in the right direction or give you the right resource. Okay, it's been fun. This is Karamoko, Tech Tuesdays. Yeah, bye-bye.